All right, we're live here Tuesday, December 30th for our second episode with these guys. Deebo Bridges, Jaylen Fasazi joining me.
Well,
I'm Andrew Williams. On my Andrew's College Game Day podcasting, like I said, second one with y'all. Very happy to have y'all. Good time to do this podcast, actually, right in the middle of the college football playoffs. LSU's football season just ended, so we'll start with that, recapping their 7-6 season. So, Deebo, Jaylen, glad to have y'all here on the podcast Tuesday, December 30th.
Yeah,
So,
very
LSU.
excited. Oh,
You go, Jaylen.
nah, nothing. I thought it was an introduction thing.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. LSU football 7-6. Lost to Houston in the bowl game 38-35 in a game. We should have won that game 14-0 early in the first quarter. Then Houston got all the momentum in the second half, it seems like. Debo, what did you think in the first half for LSU side? We looked good the first quarter, first play of the game, scored that kick return. So, what thoughts
that
in the
was
first half for LSU?
that was awesome. That little kick return to start it off. I thought we was gonna pull off against Houston, but Houston they came around and it looked like the run game was non-existent for a little bit. I'd say in the first half, second half it was all passing, and Michael Vick he doesn't look bad. He honestly does not look bad. 267 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 24-yard rush. He's not a bad quarterback in those situations, but I felt like LSU they kind of slowed down in the first half, and I think that's what's costing them that game. But Houston, they're a powerful team. Next year, expecting a lot of guys to come back.
Yeah, you said Michael Van Buren. Depending on who LSU gets in quarterback out of the transfer portal, they're still gonna have to compete with Michael Van Buren. I think, like you mentioned, he's a good quarterback. He's staying at LSU. He even said on his press conference he loves Baton Rouge. He loves where he's at. He's gonna stay there. Who if we bring in Chambliss out of Ole Miss, I think still gonna have a compete with the job with Michael Van Buren.
Yeah, and I think
So
no, you go.
you go.
All right, but I think it's the run game. Like I don't know what type of coaching staff, because I understand you don't really have a head coach. You have your interim head coach, which is the running backs coach, and your offensive play caller is the offensive line coach, and it's you know kind of it should work hand to hand between those two. But I think he got a little bit too carried away in the passing game. And I think that's what cost him this loss. But overall, I'd say it's not a bad season. I mean, there was a lot of expectations start of the year. Obviously, Coach Brian Kelly he got fired like midway through. That really costed this team, a chance to feel good on the right path. I'd say, but overall, I'd say yeah, you got to look for somebody in the transfer portal, and it's got to be quick.
Yeah, offensive side, I think we're gonna have weapons next year, depending on who goes to the draft, who graduates, all the senior wide receivers we have. We still have Trey Green, who is really the X factor for the Tigers this season. Running back, we'll have Harlan Berry, who will be a sophomore. Kenan Durham will be a junior. They're both sharing carries, doing both excellent job back there in the backfield. So Jaylen, what can you expect from the run game next year? If Michael Van Buren is the starting quarterback, he's even using his legs more than some of these running backs.
Yeah, I think the running game was something we all talked about as LSU fans, and we really didn't like it. We saw, I mean, the first 4 games of the season, like Deebo was talking about, where we started off really good, and then we went into SEC play and we started losing, and it was the running game's fault that kind of took us down. If we can find, it's going to be tough with our new running back coach, right? He's coming from Ole Miss. And so if we get Quan Lacey, then one of Harlan Berry and Caden Durham are going to leave. So in this question, you have to ask yourself, do we want Berry and Durham to stay in the backfield next year, or do we want to get a powerhouse weapon in Lacey? And Lacey's a really good guy in Ole Miss. He's carried the Ole Miss offense with Chambers using his legs. And
Yep.
so the running game just needs to be better next year. And it's going to be huge pressure on them along with the O-line. As we saw, 6 offensive linemen are transferring next year. And so you're going to have a brand new offensive lineman coming in
Mm-hmm.
2026. But one of the things that LSU is liking with Lane Kiffin is he's a recruiter. He's going to be able to get the guys we need. He's going to be able to use the money that we have. And so when you have that kind of stuff, it's very helpful, right? In this game, in this era of college football, with this generation, it's all about money. And a prime example is Bryce Underwood. LSU offered him like maybe 2 million. And then on signing day, Michigan came in 10 million. But you look at how Bryce Underwood did this year, and he didn't really do that good for Michigan. They had high expectations, and they're trying to beat Ohio State for like 5 consecutive years. It didn't work out. And so the name of the game is money, and that's what LSU has for Lane Kiffin. So when you talk about the running game, you got to ask yourself, who do you want?
Yeah, Jaylen, you mentioned the offensive line being a big factor. You said 6 guys going out in the transfer portal. That's really like one of the low points this season with Nussmeier not playing good. That's because of the offensive line. Nussmeier's a good quarterback. He's going to have a good future in the NFL, I think. He just didn't have the help he needed. He had a good group of receivers, 2 great running backs, young running backs, but he didn't have the offensive line. He was getting beat up in the backfield, injuries for the second half of the season. So with a good offensive line in the future in the NFL, I think he'll be a good quarterback.
Yeah. And to me, it's
All
like,
right, so you go.
yeah, to me, it's like many of the offensive linemen that we are recruiting. I know, no glaze, but the number one recruiter in the country committed to LSU. He does play he plays O line at U High, and you're thinking to yourself, man, he could be a two-way player if he really wants to. Playing offensive lineman and defensive lineman. But I don't really see that as much. I think he's gonna stay at his one position, and he's got to really succeed in transfer portal for offensive lineman. Honestly,
I got one more. I got one more thing before we move on. When we talked about how we all thought how Nussmeier was not the guy, I actually think Nussmeier was the guy. I think it was like we said. I think it was the O line's fault because we saw it last year. We saw when the O line gave Nussmeier time, he was able to throw it deep. He had Will Campbell with him in there too to be able to block. So necessarily, this is not Nussmeier's fault. Now we talked about. I think when the Arkansas game and Van Buren made his first start and the crowd was happy. I don't necessarily think that they should have been happy because Van Buren was at Mississippi State last year, not a good SEC program. Then he comes to LSU and Van Buren went I think his record was 2-3. And the 2 wins were not pretty wins. They were against Arkansas and Western Kentucky, which Western Kentucky is a whole different conversation. So it's not Nussmeier's fault. It was the O-line's fault. Nussmeier he didn't have the weapons to perform this year.
And really the defense didn't do good the second half of the season. Clemson game, until all the way to the Vanderbilt game, that's when they stopped, being themselves. Whit Weeks had that injury against Florida. No, Ole Miss, I believe, actually. Then, 2 other Weeks brothers, Wes Weeks, Zach Weeks stepping up. Zach Weeks did a great job this year at his first year of LSU. So look for him to also have a bright future. With Whit Weeks, he'll be he'll be at LSU with his last year of eligibility next year. So really excited to see this LSU team, who we can bring in at the offseason, what Lane Kiffin can do, and excited to watch this team next season. So 12-team college football playoff bracket update. Oregon beat James Madison. Alabama beat Oklahoma. Ole Miss beat Tulane, and Miami beat Texas A&M. One game tomorrow, New Year's Eve, I believe. Miami, Ohio State, and I think the rest of them are on January 1st. Deebo, I heard you like Texas Tech. Texas Tech and Oregon's going to be a good one, I think. Oregon's actually favors in this game, I think 2.5 maybe, against number 4, Texas Tech.
I mean, obviously the rankings. I mean, the what is it? The line, the game. Understandable. JMU, they had a shot, but at the end of the day, Oregon was just completely better than them. And coming into this game, they're already starting off with a nice win, and you're going into a pretty tough. Not tough. There's no home field advantage though. But Texas Tech, they're a gritty team defensively, and the run game was working with Texas Tech. So I think honestly, I still decided to pick Texas, but this is obviously a good game that I'd love to see be played and is a focal point in the college football playoffs.
Yeah, look for the Oregon Texas Tech game to be actually high scoring. James Madison put 34 points in them. They all season long. If it's been high scoring games, the defense hasn't stepped up when they needed to. So I think Texas Tech's defense has to do a good job against Oregon's offense because they're really good. Dante Moore and them got a good group of receivers as well. I just think the defense for Oregon is going to have to step up against Texas Tech if they're going to want to win. It's been Texas Tech's defense this year more than offense, I feel like, Deebo. So I think if Oregon's defense can step up against Texas Tech, they'll have a good chance of winning. But if Texas Tech defense play like they did all season, it's gonna be a tough time for Oregon.
Especially because you got one of the best linebackers in the league, and
Yep.
he's commanding that whole defense. So yeah, it's gonna be a pretty challenging task for Oregon.
Yeah. Another game I'm really excited to watch is tomorrow night, Miami, Ohio State. We're gonna see, if really Ohio State's a team. You like Miami, Debo?
The hate watch is real. I don't want to see Ohio State. Miami is
Wow.
pulling the upset. That is what I chose. I think Miami they can continue the Cinderella run. Obviously, last week against Texas A&M, they looked that was a sluggish game. That was the best defensive game I've ever seen from both sides,
Yeah.
honestly. And Texas A&M,
Yeah.
they couldn't get the job done when it mattered most. Obviously, the interception in the back of the end zone by the freshman, DB. And now you're going into deep territory against a better team that's in the Big Ten. But Miami, I'm watching. Like they could really go for a run if they wanted to, and they could really ruin Ohio State's year for this game.
I think 2 touchdowns for Ohio State will beat Miami. I just don't think Miami's offense has been good towards the end of the season. And then against Ohio State's defense, they only scored 10 points against A&M. So if Ohio State can score 14 points, 17 points, I think they'll come out of there with the win.
Yeah.
Well, with this game, right? So Ohio State's last game they played against was Indiana, and that was one of the worst games that Ohio State has played all year. It was the worst game of Julian Saint's career, right? He went 21 for 29, went 258. He threw an interception on the opening drive. Now, the big question is this Ohio State team, when you look at their regular season, they only played, we could say, 2 real opponents, and that was Texas in week 1, and that was Michigan, and rivalry week. And then they had to play a really good Indiana team. But the problem was Ohio State's O-line could not compete with the Indiana D-line. Now Ohio State has to play another real opponent. And as of right now, the last game they played, a true real opponent in Indiana, they could not get the job done. So I'm very excited to see how Ohio State can change the script here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the most interesting game in the second round is actually going to come with Indiana, who you're just talking about. Indiana, Alabama. I just don't know what to expect in this game. I think Indiana's been a great team all season, but are they really that good? Are they going to be a team that can compete with Alabama? Alabama just came off of a win against Oklahoma, where that was a second half game, really. They're going to have to get off to a better start, like Indiana did against Ohio State. That's the only reason they came out with that win. The only difference between Ohio State and Indiana was the missed field goal, really. If he would have
Yeah.
made that field goal, we're talking about Ohio State, Indiana. Indiana being the 2 seed, Ohio State being the 1 seed. Now we're thinking Ohio State is the best team in the country. But since they lost that game, we're just not all the hype has went down. All the hype on Indiana has rose. So I think, are they going to be able to compete with Alabama, Debo?
I believe so. For facing the number one team back in the Big Ten championship, and now you're going up against an SEC squad that's pretty weak. Started off rough against Oklahoma, but they came back. I still feel Indiana can take care of business against Alabama and ruin a lot of Roll Tide fans for this weekend or for the new year. But Indiana, if they can just contain uh Tyler Simpson, is that the quarterback? Yeah, Tyler Simpson.
Yeah.
You can really up the score against Alabama, and I feel like the line for this game should be a little bit more higher than expected, considering Alabama is pretty weak right now. But yeah, I got Indiana winning this one pretty convincingly.
Yeah, we'll make our picks in just a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah,
um,
okay,
I
yeah,
think I think Alabama's offensive line as well is going to have to do a better job protecting Ty Simpson. If you can get him comfortable in that backfield, we know what he's capable of, and the run game for Alabama has worked in some cases. So I think Indiana's defense is really going to have to step up. I mean, the offense has done good. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman Trophy. They're going to have to do something they never seen this year. I think the defense has to step up against Alabama.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys talk about defense and offense. I think a key thing for Indiana is if their offense can stay consistent, right? They've been one of the most consistent offenses this year in college football. And they're number 11th in rushing, and they were 63rd last year. So obviously what Curtis Ignetti has done with Fernando Mendoza, also a first-time Indiana Heisman winner, which we didn't really get to talk about that much. But, Curtis Ignetti and and for Mendoza, they've been consistent, and that's all you need in college football. If you're able to be consistent for 12 weeks, 13 weeks, 14 weeks, it doesn't matter how many weeks. If you can show up every single week, destroy teams, then you're going to be able to be good this year, right? Indiana has one of the national leads in margin. They're tied with Texas Tech with 17. So both the offense and the defense are really locking in. If they can lock it in for this quarterfinal game against Alabama, it's going to be a really good game. When we talk about quarterfinals, nobody talks about 1 versus 9 ever. But this is going to be the first time where all eyes are going to be 1 versus 9. And whoever wins this matchup can be able to go to deep run.
That's totally true. The part, I think it's Miami, Ohio State, then it's Ole Miss and Georgia at the bottom of the bracket. And then I think, Alabama, Indiana are both being teams like Texas Tech and Oregon. So I think winner of this game will see the national championship.
Yeah.
All right, y'all ready for some picks to make for the second round? Didn't cover.
Well, first.
We have the other game. There's still another game.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's
a huge. Know what's gonna happen at Georgia.
It's still a quarterfinal game. Still 2 teams.
Yeah, we can say something about it. All I can say is it's gonna be a blowout. Georgia's winning that.
Hold on.
Ole Miss has no. Ole Miss has no coach.
Come on now. Did you not see the way they played against
Tulane? Nothing right now.
Pete Golding can win national championship next year. All right.
Ole Miss has nothing. What do you want from this squad here? They already beat.
Look at this game. Ole Miss and Georgia earlier in the season. It was a very close game. It was high scoring, close game. Trinidad Chambers played very well in that game. But look, if Ole Miss, they've been preparing for this game because, they played Tulane, who I think they can get past. They did prepare for that game. But after that, it's been all Georgia. They know they play them. Georgia got the first round bye. So after this, I think, Ole Miss, this could be a close game, Deebo. I don't think it might just be a blowout. I'm not going to make my pick right now, but look, Ole Miss can compete with Georgia. I think they have a really good chance. Lane Kiffin got fired. They have something they don't have really – they have something to play for, really. So I think this is one of the bigger games in the second round.
I mean, sure, they have something to play for, but if you beat Georgia, you're going to have to go up against either Miami or Ohio State. I don't think you should be wanting to go up against those two very knockout stage teams for your season to end just like that, and everybody just leaves that squad. So if you want to make a run, by all means, go do that. But you gotta focus on your first team, and then that's against Georgia. But yeah,
all right.
But
yep, you go.
As I was saying, the first round, I had a lot of questions about it. I heard from a lot of Notre Dame fans online saying both JMU and Tulane should have not been in, and it was like sad. It was kind of crazy seeing both of them get blown out. I want to see a guy's perspective on this.
Okay, so it's time for the picks. Really huge games. Oregon, Texas Tech, Deebo. Who's gonna win?
I still got Texas Tech. I think that defense can really get to the QB from Oregon, and if their D line can really pressure them and that run game, it should be over with. Honestly, just taking that nice W and winning this game pretty convincingly. I'd say 23-13. It's gonna be defensive, but Texas Tech with that run game, it's unstoppable once you get that run back hot. So yeah, I got Texas Tech winning.
Oh, I think you said 23-13.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a little more high scoring. Oregon's defense hasn't stepped up, but the offense has. But the thing I'm interested to see is how can Texas Tech's defense, stop Oregon's offense, and how can Texas Tech's offense put points against Oregon's defense. So I think it'll be high scoring. I think Oregon will pull off the win late. I think it's gonna be a fourth quarter game, really. I think it's gonna be a really good game, one of the best games out of these four. But I think Oregon will win.
Yeah, I think when we talk about this Texas Tech team, I feel like they kind of show the same resemblance as Arizona State, right? Getting a bye, and if we're talking seriously, this might be Texas Tech's only chance at making a shot and going for a national championship, right? We saw Arizona State, 4th seed, they got a bye, and now they didn't do so good, but they just re-signed Kenny Dillingham from going anywhere. So I think I think it's gonna be a close game, like we saw Arizona State, Texas last year. I think this game is gonna be a back and forth game, offense, defense. And if Texas Tech can play defense with their number one linebacker in the country, then they'll be able to get this done. But I think Oregon's offense is just too good for a Big 12 defense, and I think Oregon is gonna get this dub here.
Yeah, before we have 3 viewers, I believe. So if you're interested in making the picks with us in the comments, we'll share them with you. I see Pitt's Life is picking Texas Tech in this one. So love to have people commenting their picks and be along like picking with us. Alabama, Indiana, Deebo. Alabama, Indiana, Deebo. Oh boy.
And we lost them.
All right, Jaylen, why you pick? What? All right,
There you go.
we like lost connection for a second. Alabama, Indiana.
Well, who's going? Me?
Bro. Yeah,
you.
you.
Deebo.
I don't know who's going. Okay. Well, I pick Indiana, the higher seed over the 9. Obviously, the prediction is to go over 50. I believe that. I think Ty Simpson could start off hot and then slow down the D line from Indiana. Starts connect. Is Andrew good? Are we good?
Yeah,
Hello?
we good.
You good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Oh. I saw Andrew just glitching out, but they get it together. I believe Mendoza and that could make a run and possibly blow out. But keep it close. I'd say around the fourth quarter they just start to unload on Alabama's defense, and I got the score to be 35-28, like 35-20, honestly.
Yeah, I like that. Really, I think, like I mentioned earlier, is Indiana going to be able to compete with teams out of Alabama? We saw them beat Oregon earlier in the season, and we saw them beat Ohio State in the conference championship. But I really think that Alabama will win this game. I think it's going to be a close game. However, I think it'll be low scoring, keep it low. Defenses are going to do good, but like I said, offensive line for Alabama is going to have to step up, and I think Alabama will win this game.
This is going to be, I think all 4 of these quarterfinal games are going to be back and forth besides Ole Miss and Georgia. I think this game is going to be really back and forth. I think we're going to see an Indiana team coming into the college football playoffs. Man, they're pumped up. It's going to be like an opportunity that they're not going to waste, right? You're the number 1 team in the country. Go play like it. And that's what Indiana has been doing all year. We talked earlier in the show about consistency. If they can stay consistent, even through the postseason, even through 2026, they're going to be able to get this dub. Alabama has kind of been the underdog. We saw them lose to Florida State week 1, and we're like, oh my God, Ty Simpson, he sucks. Oh my God. And then we saw them beat Georgia. And then we saw them. Then they lost to Oklahoma. Then we had little concern. But then we saw Georgia. And Georgia was just not – Georgia, it was rough. Georgia just absolutely destroyed Bama. And Indiana has stayed consistent, right, with a huge win against Ohio State. I think the 1 seed comes into play here. I think they're going to play like the national championship is on the line here. I think Indiana – I think it's going to be a 3-point game, and it's going to be a close one.
I like it. Huge SEC matchup. Ole Miss, Georgia.
Brother.
We already know what's gonna happen. Stockton balling out, Branch balling out. Ole Miss, I do think their run game works with with Lacey, honestly. But other than that, Georgia just wins by 21. I say they win by 21 points, and they destroy Ole Miss's chance, hopes, and dreams of ever seeing a national championship ever again. But yeah, I got Georgia winning.
This might be the last time we see Ole Miss with a team like they have in about 5 years. When I think a lot of these players will enter the transfer portal, go to the NFL, graduate. So really, they're gonna not have the same team next year. But I'm interested to see if Ole Miss can keep this game close. I think Georgia will win this game. We can all agree on that. But I just want to see if Ole Miss can keep it close. Without Lane Kiffin, everything's falling apart really. But they still have their team. They have a new coach. That's all they have. I just want to see if they keep it close. Georgia wins this game though.
Yeah, I think with Ole Miss, right? Ole Miss has nothing to lose here, right? Ole Miss, like they have nothing to lose. They're playing football, and unfortunately, they're playing football at a time which sucks to be in Oxford with Pete Golden being your new head coach, and you're seeing on TikTok how all the Ole Miss coaches are coming to Baton Rouge and working on the transfer portal. So they're playing football at the worst time to live in Oxford. Like I said, Ole Miss has nothing to lose. They can just play football. If they lose, who cares? We have a new era next year anyway. I think Ole Miss, they're going to try to come out there. I think they're going to try to play their best. I just think Georgia's going to absolutely destroy them. I think this is a game where this is going to be a confidence booster for Georgia. If they can destroy Ole Miss, then, they're just going to move on. And Ole Miss, unfortunately, is not going to be able to do good against Georgia, right? We talked about the regular season meeting. Okay, Lane Kiffin was calling plays. So it's a little different now. You got Charlie Weasel calling plays for Ole Miss. Georgia is going to absolutely BTA on Ole Miss, and they're moving on to the next round.
I like it. Last game coming up tomorrow night, I believe. Miami, Ohio State, huge game, Deebo.
It's huge. Very, very tone-setting game, I'd say, between both squads. If Ohio wins, instant. It could be an instant where they could just go bonkers across the whole league and make the college football playoffs and win it again. But if Miami wins it, now you got to be very concerned of both teams. Now you got to be very concerned of that could go on a Cinderella run against either Georgia or Ole Miss. In my opinion, I think Miami pulling the upset against the second best
Wow.
team in the country. They take care of business. They win this game by a nail biter. I'd say it's going to be by a field goal. They end this game off against Ohio State. What? 10-13. Like the Big Ten, I say they repeat that same type of score line because both defenses they are very tough to beat. But Miami, their running back, if he can just start off hot, you win that. I got Miami 13-10 going to the semifinals.
Wow. I think earlier in the season, if this game probably mid-season when Miami was top 5, I would have picked Miami in this game just because all the momentum they had. But that sort of dropped after that loss against Louisville. Things haven't connected for them. They had 10 points against Texas A&M. The defense really stepped up in that game, and that's the crucial point. Will they be able to stop Ohio State to getting over 17 points? And I think that'll be a big factor. If Ohio State scores, I think 14, 17 points in this game, I think they'll come out with the win. And we've seen it all season. They're gonna put points on the board. So Ohio State will win this game.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge game. And Miami's got a quarterback who's been in the situation before, Carson Beck, right? He was in this situation last year. He made it to the quarterfinals. Now, he didn't play in that quarterfinal because he was injured. This Miami team, it's very debatable if they should even be in the playoffs right now or if it should be Notre Dame. So now Miami is taking every advantage that they get to play in 2026, or if they'll play in 2026. But this is going to be a huge game for both teams. Obviously, winners moving on to the semifinal. Ohio State's trying to go back-to-back. I don't think they'll be able to go back-to-back. However, I do think they get a huge win against Miami. The Miami win over Texas A&M, now that was bad football at its finest right there. However, the last-minute drives and all that blah, blah, blah stuff by Miami, that was good football. But from quarters 1 to quarters 4 with 5 minutes left in the game was all bad football. If Miami plays the way that they played against A&M, Ohio State's going to just destroy them. So I got Ohio State just getting this dub, and they'll be playing Georgia.
All right, one more pick. I want to see what the thoughts are. We'll have a better understanding after this week. It's hard to pick. But who will win the national championship, Deebo?
I'm still sticking with my squad. The Red Raiders. Give me Texas Tech. I want them to win. It's been a very beautiful season from them. From almost going undefeated, losing that one game to beating the allegations against BYU and Bear Bachmeyer, and then beating him again in the Big Ten. What is it? Is it Pac-12 or like Big
Big
12?
12.
Yeah,
Big
Big
12.
12 championship. I want them to bring it all the way home, get them their first ever natty. Was it? Yeah, I want them to get their natty and just party all night. That's what I want.
Um, let's see. I think Alabama, Georgia will be moving on to opposite sides of the bracket to the semifinals. Two SEC teams. I'm really pulling for them. And Georgia, the second half of the season, I think it's been unbelievable for them. Offense, defense, both have been great. Uh, Give me Georgia to win the national championship.
Mm.
This is gonna be a very exciting postseason. I'm excited to see, what the winner of these games, how the semifinal is gonna turn. If my predictions are right, my national championship game, I think it's gonna be Indiana, Georgia. I think Georgia will get the dub over Ohio State. And then I think Oregon beats Texas Tech. I don't see Texas Tech in the long term run of the postseason. I think they're one and done. It's Indiana, Georgia. I think those are the best two teams in college football right now, not Indiana, Ohio State. Just because Georgia with the conference, right? SEC is just different. However, if Indiana stays consistent and they don't put pressure on themselves, I feel like I've said the word consistent a lot today, but it's what you have to do in college football. You have to be consistent, right? 2 losses and your chances of making the college football playoffs are now done or lower, unless you're Alabama. But I think this year, I think Indiana and Curtis Ignetti and Fernando Mendoza, they're going to take in the moment. They're going to play the sport that every single person on that team loves. I think Indiana is going to win the national championship this year.
Okay.
All right. So we're wrapping up college football. If you're in the chat, if you have any questions for me, Deebo, Jaylen to answer about college football, please ask them and we'll answer after we run over NFL and NBA. So Deebo, you like the NFL? Why don't you host this segment of the NFL? Deebo.
I love that it's getting to the wire. The NFL playoffs are officially around the corner as many spots in this bracket that could face off against each other in the playoffs. But we're gonna start off with the hunt in the AFC, where the Steelers is in the hunt while the Ravens are in the bubble. Jalen, I know you're also a big NFL guy. Between these two matchups, I think they also play again in week 17 for the spot.
Yeah, this is going to be a good game. I think for the first time in a long time, we're going to see a quote unquote play-in tournament for the playoffs. We have 2 divisional championship games, and it's going to be very exciting, right? We have an NFC South championship game, and we have AFC North championship
Yeah,
game, right? With the Ravens and the Steelers. I think the Ravens have been a little disappointing this year. I think the Ravens always have high hopes. I don't think Lamar has really done his best this year.
yeah.
Um, here's all I know. I have a friend. He has Lamar Jackson. He's a starting quarterback, and he benched him mid-year. That's just because he's not been playing good. He's not. Usually, we see MVP material from Lamar. This year was just a little offset. He did have an injury earlier in the year. I think the Steelers team, right? We talk about Mike Tomlin, right? He's always had a winning season at Pittsburgh. And he gets another winning season again this year. They're always going above 500. I think the Steelers get this dub. I think it's going to be, I don't know, necessarily a close game. I think they'll win by like maybe 10 points. I think the Steelers, huge win against the Ravens. Because earlier in the year, we talked about how this, in the offseason, talked about how the Steelers had an amazing team. Then they traded away George Pickens for, I forgot for who, but their defense,
DK.
and I think they have Darius Slay, and it's going to be a good matchup.
Yeah, this bubble, this April bubble game, I say can really affect the playoffs. Obviously, the Steelers they're 9-7, the Ravens are 8-8, and I feel like they've gone off to a pretty rough start, and now they're like trying to track back that little itch they have. But if you're Baltimore, I just don't see yourself. And even if they do win and they take the set what they take away the AFC North, you're gonna have to face a pretty another great team that's in the playoffs that want to make a run. So yeah, I got the Steelers to win this one, even though pretty much they're already eliminated from the playoffs. as soon as it starts, because
The
you got
Steelers.
another team coming your way.
Uh,
No, yeah, but like
yeah,
even if you win this game, it's like you're
yeah. You're
not
just gonna
you're
you're gonna
gonna
have a hard draw. You're gonna get beat in the playoffs. You're on.
Yeah.
yeah.
So who's the
But
team in the AFC to look out for? You have New England up there, who's at the top. Who do y'all think is the team to look out for in the AFC?
honestly, the most legit team I'd say is the Texans, but or the Patriots. Those two, I feel like they could face each other in the AFC Championship game. The Broncos, I'm not sure.
What about the
You face the this the past couple of weeks. You've had more one score games than the Chiefs had last year, and it's basically like the same thing, like just reverse. The Broncos, number one in the AFC, they're 13-3 record. They've had more one score games this year, and you have to win this one against the Chargers, who in fact now they can't get the number one seed at all at this point. But yes, the Patriots, they're legit. I believe in Drake May, and I'm saying it from former. But the Patriots, what can you blame? What can you say? They've been good.
I feel like the AFC always surprises us every year. There's not been really with the AFC playoff picture. It always changes. We don't know what's going to happen. I feel like with the NFC, it's always going to be the same teams that are going to make the playoffs, right? Eagles,
Yeah.
49ers, Rams, all those teams. I feel like with the AFC, we're seeing a lot of excuse me. We're seeing a lot of changes, right? We saw earlier in the season how the Colts were the number one team in the AFC. They were at 8-1. Then the Broncos. Then we have the Patriots. Then the Texans. Then the Jaguars. And these were all bad teams 3 years ago, right? The Jaguars had back-to-back first picks. Now with Duval on their side, they're looking to make a run. I don't know if the Jaguars make it. I had a friend told me that the Jaguars might make it. That the Jaguars are going to make the Super Bowl and they'll lose it. But I don't think the Jaguars go on a run. I think they lose the AFC Championship. There's 3 teams I feel like that are contenders for the spot for the AFC in the Super Bowl. Patriots, Broncos, Jaguars. I feel like those are the 3 good teams in the AFC. These 3 teams, they're taking advantage of the Chiefs not being good this year. If the Chiefs were good this year, they might still be number 1. But I don't know what's going to happen, but it's the NFL, right? So anything can happen in the NFL.
As you're elaborating earlier on the in the hunt, we have the NFC playoff bracket, a couple of one seed opportunities, and we have the basically the play-in still between Buccaneers and the Carolina Panthers. Both of them, um, just needing to just win the game, win their game, and they'll be able to be in. But I want to see y'all thoughts between these two teams and where they're going to be standing.
Well, really, besides that, it looks like all it's really coming in the NFC West. There's 3 teams in there that are already going to be in the playoffs with 3 of the best records. If you have Philadelphia up there, Chicago up there, but Los Angeles Rams at 3rd in the NFC West, and they have the same records as the other 2 teams. Seahawks, 49ers, another good team to look out for. So this side of the bracket is going to get beat up, I think. The NFC, there's going to have great teams. I think this side's, better than the AFC this year. It's going to shape out in the playoffs. So I think a lot of teams are going to beat up. You still have Carolina, Tampa Bay, who have to play each other.
Yeah, those as of right now. Those are like the 2 only teams that have not clinched their ticket, right?
Mhm.
And that's the NFC South. So whoever wins between Carolina and the Bucks,
So 1 spot left.
there's
Yeah.
1 spot left.
One spot.
Wow.
There's only 1 spot left to determine the NFC side. For the AFC side, I think So there's only 2 spots left for the playoffs. Those are the 2 biggest games of the week. There's only 2 spots left, and whoever wins Panthers and Bucks is going to get a 4 seed, and they're going to host a playoff. And I'm looking at the standings right now, and nothing can change. The only thing that can change is 5 and 6. And we saw the Rams lost to the Falcons last night on Monday Night Football, which went to the wire. But 2 spots left in the NFC. I think the NFC, right? The standings look familiar, right? Except the Seahawks and the Bears, which the Bears, they've been on a run. close game against the Niners. The Niners pulled that out. Bears are going to go to the playoffs. Ben Johnson, hype is real. Dennis Allen, an amazing defense he's building over there in Chicago.
And before we go into our little next segment, I'd say, what is your most surprising team in this NFL playoff bracket?
In the playoffs,
That's
probably
already
the
in.
probably the Bears, honestly. They're really good this year, and they're one of the top teams in NFL. But who would have thought the Bears would be a top team? Caleb Williams playing extremely well, so I think the Bears are a really good team, and a team that I thought would have been up there is the Lions. They're both in the NFC North. I would have thought the Lions would be up there, but they're last in the NFC North, not 8-8 record, already out of the playoffs. I would have expected them, maybe to win the Super Bowl. Last year they played really good. Lions just didn't have a good season. Everything fell apart after last year.
I think the Bears are definitely the most surprising team. I think with the Ben Johnson hire, we knew that they were going to be better than last year. We didn't think they were going to build. They're going to be the best in the NFC. But what Ben Johnson has been able to do, turn him into possibly a top 10 NFL quarterback. And that's the offensive mind, right? The Detroit Lions were good because Ben Johnson was their OC. And so when you talk about the Lions falling, I think that's the reason why the Lions are doing so well. They don't have good play calling. Ben Johnson was there to call the plays. Ben Johnson is going to be an offensive mind. He's probably going to be one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. And it's not even the Bears who have been the most surprising.
For me, I know it's the Bears. I know both of y'all had to answer that. But for me in the AFC, I said it'd be the Texans. They started off bad, like really bad. Stuff was
Mm-hmm.
not working out. The defensive line struggling. CJ Stroud still looking like his sophomore slump. And then midway through the season, it just picked up. It started picking up brick by brick. A nice one against Buffalo. You go into Kansas City, you beat them, and now all of a sudden you're in the playoffs with a chance to solidify yourself as another great solid team. And if CJ Stroud keeps it up, you're expecting greatness, possibly making the divisional round or AFC Championship game. So the Texans, yes, um, for the AFC is my most surprised team from them starting off bad to coming back ready and like ready than ever. That's what I got for my
All right. So that's it for NFL. Let's go back to college football. Like I said, we have some questions in there. Former user 123 asked, "Do y'all think LSU will win the national championship next year?" Wow, Deebo.
That's a hot take, honestly. That's a very hot take. I'd say because you don't know what you're getting out of this right now. For right now, I'd say you don't know what you're getting out of this. Um, Obviously there's an off season. You got to expect a lot of stuff to be coming in and then coming out. I think for a first year coach coming to a new SEC school, I just don't think that's gonna work out. Uh, I feel like we're gonna make it very close. I think we're gonna make the playoffs, but I just don't think we're gonna be winning the Natty. Like, you still have a lot of growth to be made with this new coach for a first year. But yeah, I don't think they're gonna make it to the national championship and win it. I just think it's gonna be a building year where they do make the playoffs, but they come up short.
Yeah, I honestly think a national championship will come in between, the next 5 years for LSU, especially since we got Lane Kiffin this season. He's going to do a good job recruiting players out of high school and, transfer portal. One thing I hope for LSU is we get young this year. I think we need to get look for high school seniors right now and look for young transfer players like Trinidad Chambliss is another one. He'll be a senior next year, I believe. So look for young players, I think, to build a program at LSU. And I think a national championship will come in the next 5 years. I don't think it will be next year. I think we'll have a good season next year. We might even make the playoffs. Hopefully, SEC championship, be one of the top teams in the SEC. I just don't think the national championship is going to come next year. I think it'll come in the next 5 years. We're going to have a good team next year. We're going to win. We're just not going to be able to compete with teams like Georgia, Alabama in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think LSU. Sorry, I think LSU will make the playoffs. Hopefully, they make the playoffs. I don't want LSU to get a bye. I would like them to get a home seed. Home game at Death Valley would be crazy. Definitely on my bucket list for sure. I don't think they will make the national championship. The first question is who's going to be the starting quarterback for next year, right? MVP, or we get a transfer with Lagway or Sam Levitt. I think next year's not championship or bust. I think it's playoffs. I think that you have to go year by year, and you have to go one step at a time. All right, let's make the playoffs year 2. All right, let's win SEC. Let's make the playoffs year 1. Let's win SEC year 2, and let's go in the national championship at year 3. You have to put the piece by piece together to solve it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we wrap it up here, let's talk a little about the NBA. Jaylen, you want to host this segment? Take over.
Yeah, so NBA, we're getting closer to All-Star break. We're not getting that close, but a couple of months into season, and the standings look exactly how they should be looking. I feel like there's been no major change with who's good and who's bad. I think the only surprising thing is the Pacers are last, but I think we kind of expected that with Jokic. I'm not Jokic, with Halliburton, who injured in Game 7. But one thing I want to talk about right now is the Pelicans. Right now, they've been on a losing streak, but just a couple of weeks ago, they were on a 4-game winning streak, which was the highest that the Pelicans have been on since January of 2025. Why are they on a new high streak? Willie Green's not the head coach anymore, so I think like a day after we filmed the first one, the Pelicans fired Willie Green. I don't think that's. I mean, it's been a key factor, obviously. I think our new interim, he's done a good job. What I like about the Pelicans is I like Zion coming off the bench. I feel like he's better off the bench than he is in the starting 5. He's been able to average a ton of points, getting a ton of rebounds and all that. They did lose to the Knicks last night. It was a close game. Andrew, your thoughts on the Pelicans this year?
Yeah, you're looking at the conference. We're last in the conference, but we're only 6 games behind that 10 seed. We can get into playoffs. You said we're not even until hot All-Star break. We're not even halfway through the season. There's so much more games to be played. We easily have a chance to make these playoffs. 6 games behind Portland, who we play tomorrow, I believe. So if we can win that one, cut it to 5, and keep our momentum shifting. Like you said, Zion off the bench. I think that's been a good factor. We play him most of the second half, however, but coming off the bench is like a low point for teams when they're having to deal with already Trey Murphy at the 3-point line and Jeremiah Fears, Derek Queen, 2 rookies, and then your starters get gassed. They have to come off the bench and they have to deal with Zion Williamson. That's just a bust for teams like them. And our starting 5, Sadiq Bey, has really stepped up. I think he's been a high point for the Pelicans this year. Derek Queen's really doing good. Use Missy off the bench. He hasn't been playing much. He came off the bench a little bit. Carlo Mactiff and Kevon Looney had a good game last night as well. So 4 centers who are getting sharing playing time really, but 6 games behind. I think we're gonna need to start winning now. We're not gonna want to push it into last season. I mean, to the end of the season like we have the last 5 years or so. But Zion Williamson coming off the bench, I think that's been really the high point for the Pelicans this season.
Yeah, I haven't watched a lot of the Pelicans ball, but they seem good. That 5-game win streak from them uh, until the 23rd of December. They lost to Cleveland, then you lost to Phoenix twice, then you just lost to New York. But honestly, from what I'm seeing, Zion, he's been looking solid. Um, he's been able to provide for this team even when they're losing or when they're winning. Um, and the next couple of stretch of games, they're pretty easy. You got Chicago, you got Portland, then you go to Miami, then you got to face the Lakers, and then you got to face Atlanta and Washington. You could easily get at least 5 or 6 of those games a W. But I'm not saying that they're going to be consistent with it. That's the thing. Is this New Orleans team going to keep up that same momentum they had a couple from last week? Are they going to have that same momentum, or is it going to be the same team that's gonna stay in the losing streak and then keep going and spiraling until that then when they're out they're gonna start winning. It's I'm still unsure from the squad.
All right, thanks, Jaylen. Thanks, Deebo. That's unfortunately it for this podcast. We're gonna start to wrap it up. Hopefully, we can get a podcast in maybe Friday after college football playoffs. We'll have a lot to talk about then, and even more of the Pelicans who they play. I think tomorrow against the Bulls. So, thank you all for joining me on my podcast, and